Dungeon Doom Hands. Let's
We should have a
talk
good session
lore.
tonight. I'm
A
pretty excited
podcast.
for it.
As
Um,
well.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Lore. I'm Spencer, and this is Chris.
I'm Chris.
Um, and tonight we're going to talk about drumroll role play, something that happens in every D&D session. Um, Chris, role playing
Yes.
experiences. Now, I think one of the best ways to talk about it would be to go from our personal experiences, maybe playing together, and critique a little bit each other's styles, because role play has a way of hurting and also helping the uh, the sessions, the campaign sessions. So um, role playing negatives and positives, I guess. What would your opinions be of um, good role play versus bad role play? I don't know if there's really a differentiation between the two, but there probably is.
I think a lot of just going to examples from I Got Doom Hand, there are nights when the chemistry isn't there, people are feeling tired, and it just nothing's clicking. And then there's other nights when you're playing and you're feeding off of everyone else's energy, and it just feels natural to be in the character and playing the character as you are instead of just a person controlling some stats on a sheet.
Right, and I agree with you. It depends on obviously on the the game itself.
Hmm.
Is everyone there, paying attention,
Yeah.
tired, and whatnot? But um, I don't know. I think if I were to say before I get into like how you role play from my perspective, I think that the best role play that happens during a game is sort of the people are in character and and they and they I don't know if they know it, but they respond and act, accordingly.
Hmm.
And it's pretty hilarious when it all works out. Um,
Well, it's some of my favorite moments for that spontaneity is when the DM, you or I, have a moment where you just need some time to collect things before a fight or something, and you're like, "All right, I need some time. You guys talk amongst yourselves." And then you get those conversations that have been waiting to come out for weeks, months, years.
it, yeah, but like there's also so you have like your character is specifically trying to get like he's got his own quest, his own goals and stuff.
Hmm.
So like when something random happens in like that character's backstory, something happens. I feel like that it's almost like automatic cool role play experience because um, you've sort of as a DM have woven together the story to include each character, and it sets up a good role play. You can't just like have the people role play
Hmm.
without like the backgrounds and stuff. So it's a little bit more detail. I feel like people get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes with the role play. Um,
Something that I like to do to get other people engaged, is I'll ask questions.
so like, what do you mean?
Like if we're in a room, my character will ask a random question to another character. Like for example, in our home game, um, I'm playing a cleric and a fellow player is a paladin, and I was just asking, all right, who's your god? Who do you follow? And random questions about them just to feed out some of that backstory. And then a couple sessions later, pull out the random name of someone from their backstory, and they feel excited that you remembered part of it, and you feel connected to the other place a little bit
Y-
more.
Yeah, so let's get into like how you role play your characters because I've I, I like to do the voices of people. I like to do the I always, again, I've said this before in one of the Let's Talk Lore things. No matter who I'm playing, female, male, God, not God, bad guy, whatever, they always sort of sound like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings. But um, I'm trying to step away from that, trying to give a little bit
we
more.
all have that second voice of like when we have a conversation with ourselves, we have our voice. Then there's the other person that we're talking, and
Yeah.
it's always that voice for random NPC. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing. Just
I
throw the other voice out there.
Yeah, it's so funny because like I don't think you do voices, and I love the way that you do role play. It's just a different way that I do it. Um, and I feel like because you're more of an experienced player and also a DM, you've been doing this for longer and more hours than I have. Your role play, I feel like you sort of stay true, not necessarily to the you stay true to your character. So it's like, if you're what's it called, good, and um, you're like chaotic evil, let's just say your alignment.
Mhm.
I feel like maybe players and DMs can sort of use the alignment to sort of as a framework to how to role play.
It's a
That
tool. It's a
Yeah,
tool that you can go back to understand how your character might react in this situation.
right.
It's like if you fully know your character and know how they're going to react all the time, uh, a little other item called alignment doesn't really matter to you because you know their wants, needs, you know how they're going to interact in that situation. But for example, playing Lone Star, he was a chaotic evil character.
Yeah, he
There are
was.
many times when we'd be playing and as a person, I'm like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this. But for his character, this is how he's going to react, and it's going to be devastating for these NPC that are going to be fed to a mind flayer. It even hurts to say that again, but it's it's what Lone Star's. I mean, that's how he plays. That's how he is.
It's true. And
And
yeah,
I mean, a lot of times it's. I mean,
a
that's
good
how
friend
he
of
plays.
mine's.
There's
That's
a
how he
little
is.
bit of us in every character we play. And I try and find that little spot, and sometimes it's hard. Like Lone Star was really hard to see myself in Lone Star,
Oh, for sure.
but it's much easier when you see the little bits of you that do come out in that character and just play into that because that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, and you know, so going back to like the voicing and stuff like that, I feel like,
Oh,
so
and but
yeah.
in my head when I'm role playing, I'm doing the voice every single time.
Oh yeah,
It's just so terrible that it always comes out as my normal voice.
yeah, and I think that the more you play, the more, so it's like weird. So certain people like myself will get more engaged, and my voices will come out, and the role playing experience will happen as you get
Mhm.
further in. I feel like some people, they don't necessarily develop that voicing and stuff like that, but that's not, voicing is not what role playing is. Role playing is more like you're playing that character. And I feel like the more you play, I think maybe even if you're a beginner player, maybe like session 2 or 3 is really when you sort of get your bearings and sort of can
You
um
feel comfortable
yeah,
enough with
yeah,
the game you're playing to allow yourself to open up a little bit
for
more.
sure. And
A place I love to throw in random little bits of RP, um, role play,
RP,
sorry,
yeah.
is during
Slang
combat.
during
Whenever,
combat.
like in my turn, I'm like, I always think of all you have your action, bonus action, you have all the things you're doing, and there's something that randomly comes up, and you have 6 words in combat. I'm like, well, I want to use those every time. Like communicate with the other people or um, describe what I'm doing. Like with my cleric, I'll say a random prayer to the god as I'm casting a spell or something just to bring out more of the elements that I want to showcase for that character.
So describe a role play that you would do. So you're fighting and you're in a battle, and
Mm,
you're going to role play your character, and you have 6 seconds to do your actions. That's
yeah.
plenty of time. 6 seconds. Listen, count it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could certainly take a swing, and you could certainly cast a spell and say stuff. It's not like
Mhm.
you're limited. So I like that.
No.
You know.
Well, so for example, like my cleric, he's a Twilight cleric. So um, he'll cast his magical sphere, and it's like so. In comment, I'll say, yeah, his shell glows, and these glyphs start to shine a light from him, and it spreads out this far, and he points at each one of you and says, "Stay close, my friends.
Yeah,
I will take care of you."
yeah, and
It's like little things like that, and it's
that it is
just
very.
bringing personality out
It's
there.
really
Like,
cool. Like when you did the self-sacrifice to kill the Kraken, it was such a like for me as a DM that was so cool and unexpected. I know you guys had planned something, but I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew someone was going to die or multiple people were going to die, but I didn't see that coming. And you sort of like were like, okay, guys, Aranis, give me here, take this, and you threw him your most valuable treasure that you're searching. You spent
mhm.
months getting this thing. You threw it to him. I was like, oh my god, what is happening? And like as a DM, I was like, you know what? That's a bonus action. That toss of that thing. Let's see where this goes, and that's really really cool. And I agree with you. I think the one of the ways that you do role play very well is weave it into the I don't want to say, like, I guess boring portions of the game. I guess like combat is boring, but when you introduce role play, I really like how you do that. And you also do that, and some of the other characters and players we have also do that during puzzles and traps. So it's like, you know, it, it's fun.
I do love to make stupid jokes all the time.
Oh yeah,
Taking the dad joke thing, I'm trying to embrace that more.
it's
So
it's
I
a
feel like I tend to say random stupid jokes in character more often than someone else who's focused on the story might.
that's hilarious. I just think that like when you role play well, it is so awesome. But you also like the other characters that we play with, Aaron, for example. I I don't think he has. I think you guys all really pretty much role play your characters very very well, and it's to the point where like sometimes I'm like, is that Aaron or Aaroness, or is Jake being Sprock, or you know? And I
But
like.
playing with the same group of people, you do get a lot more comfortable with
Of
over
course,
time.
of course.
And so, like Aranis, when we first started, completely different level of openness about being his character in our game compared to now, where he proudly stand up. I am a wisp smoke monster, and I am Darth Aranis coming to kill you all.
Yeah,
Has a background entrance music set up for him.
and I think so. I had this book, the Game Masters. Again,
Mm,
I always say the Game Masters. I just love their material, the proactive role playing. They have this
mm,
book about, and I haven't read all of it, but it's about how you, as a DM, but also a player, um, it's about guidelines and strategies for running a PC player character driven narratives. So
mm,
and how that doing it correctly, or just using these strategies, not all of them at the same time, obviously, but um, can help bring it out naturally. So one of the ways that I think that I successfully did this, and I had been spending a lot of time trying to get people more comfortable with getting into their character, was I just had them morph. And now, for whatever reason, during our Agoth Doomhand campaign, there's a lot of morphing and changing into characters. But one of the ways that I did this was I made a voice myself for goblins or for minotaurs, and
mhm,
I knew that for in this example that Aaron was the only person in the group that knew goblin, so he had to communicate for the group what it was that was going on with the
mhm.
like with those goblins in the
Yeah.
Underdark that you guys had to kill. Or you had to kill them in order. So watching him interrogate these goblins was pretty, So a DM can set up a interaction or an encounter that is
Hmm.
completely role play driven, and
Absolutely.
which is what we're going to do in a few minutes. I think it would be kind of cool to try to run a quick little encounter with you about how like versus like
Sure.
good role play, just examples
Hmm.
of good role play. Maybe you can do one with combat, and I'll do one with a puzzle, and just
No,
show
no
how
pressure. No
there's
pressure.
zero pressure. There's zero pressure. Um, but I just think that like when it comes like naturally, it is so fun and awesome. I think that's where like the Dungeons and Dragons portion of it really shines. But you don't
Hmm.
but trying to push it onto the players is a no go for me. I mean, if the guy doesn't want to, Matt doesn't want to get into his nitty gritty character, that's fine. But I just know that his actions will sort of be the role play. The way he acts and the way he takes actions, carrying the kid, like he chose to carry the baby. He's still carrying that NPC
Yep.
baby. So like
Hmm.
that's in itself sort of there's a nurturing body in there. He's not just an NPC killer, though he is
Yes.
an NPC,
Yes.
Terminator. But
Well, one other thing I'd love to do when I'm DMing is set up scenarios for role play of like if players are exploring something, not, oh, you're walking around and you see a hole in the floor of the guy behind you. Oh, you're walking and you notice the person in front of you is about to step into a hole. Do you just let them fall? Or do you say something? Do you grab
interesting.
them? Sort of setting up the scenario that they see each other in the space and allowing them to interact with the space that way.
I really like that. And I also, recently, if you have just tuned in or are a watcher of our campaign, you'll know that I just took a step back for a DM break, a forever DM break, and Chris is now DMing.
Mm.
I think that one of the
Trying to kill all the
right
players.
one of the cool experiences, and we spoke about this 2 weeks ago during Let's Talk Lore, and you guys can click on the DM fixes for burnt out dungeon masters on the YouTube thing. One of the things we're talking about is how different DMs are also going to set up roleplay differently, which is what Chris, I think you
Hmm.
were talking about.
Yeah.
Um, I just think it's like there's so many different ways, and in this book, a lot of this stuff has to do with. A lot of people say make sure you weave in the PC characters' backstories into your tales, and a lot of the times they don't really flush out what they mean by that,
Hmm.
and maybe they're talking about one thing and versus like getting the story arcs or the story of the campaign set up. But one of the real reasons why you want to introduce a character or like a something out of the character's backstory is to influence the player to role play and get into the story. And I
Hmm.
think that I try to do all the time, all the time.
Absolutely.
Like when Booterbot joined the group, we had been playing for almost 2 years at that point, but I wanted to weave his story in hard and fast so he could feel connected with everyone. So I had him give me his story. I sort of forced him to create the story, helped him create the story. We did live actually on,
Yeah.
on a Let's Talk
Mm.
Lore and the Let's Talk Lore episode was about introducing a new character mid campaign.
Mm.
And I think one of the successful things that we did there was we played an entire scenario which was sort of solely based around his. It
Hmm.
wasn't based around it, but it had elements of his backstory in it, and he could
Yeah.
explain it to the group, and so it was really
Mm.
really cool, quite cool. So
You had opportunities for him to divulge information, to share what he wanted to share.
right. Um, and I would be interested to know from other people. This is going to be a topic that we come back to. I think it's a really creative and fun topic to come to. I'm interested to know from other people, subscribers and followers and whatever. What do you think? What are some elements that you can use, or DM or a player can use, to sort of get that proactive role play that these game masters are talking about? This is not a plug; it's just a good book. But the link for it will be in the description.
One little tip that I always use for all of my characters to help get into the mindset of them. Leave everyone with one last little tip before we go. I always make a playlist for every single character.
Oh, you're
And if
Getting-
if I getting into character, absolutely.
Getting
Because
into
getting into character, it always feels so much easier to have those natural responses and role play in the moment. And if I'm driving from home to where I'm gonna play, I'll put on my playlist for that specific character. Because what we listen to, what songs go on in our head, change how we interact with people.
Yeah, and side note, my wife right now is writing in the group chat, when are the wives going to play? That would certainly spice things up. And let me tell you something. You want to see role play at its like hardest? Try voicing a dragon, a time dragon, which we talked about in an episode, with your wife standing there shaking her head at in the doorway, just like, what are you doing?
No judgments.
But not breaking character.
You can get the looks over to be like, yes, I am doing this,
Yeah.
and yes, I do sound ridiculous, but
Yeah.
I'm still doing it. I'm doing it well.
So I think we did a good job of introducing the role play and like a little bit of what we would suggest based on our DMing and player.
Just some additional tips to see what other people do.
Yeah, and I'm interested to hear what other people think. But when we come back, and we're going to keep this running, but during the next segment, in about 2 to 4 or 5 minutes, because Chris and I have to definitely set up, but you guys can watch us set up these encounters. Yeah. We're going to show you how to role play just a couple ways. No pressure, Chris.
Oh, none whatsoever. Remember, roll high and subscribe.
Yes, and if you like to role play and you have some insights you want to share with us, please do so in the comments. As Chris said, roll high and subscribe.
This is Crosby. Crosby failed a deck save, causing him to get smashed by a giant alchemist in the Shadowhide realm. Don't be a Crosby. Roll high and subscribe.